Order, please. Report. The Senate in a closed session deliberated on matters relevant to the workings of the Senate in particular and the National Assembly in general. If this is a true reflection of what transpired in the closed session, the Leader of the Senate. Everything's on.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Appropriation on the Appropriation Bill 2025 SB 681. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was referred to the committee on Thursday, the 19th day of December 2024. Mr. President, you may wish to invite most distinguished Senator Adeola Solomon Olamilekon, Chairman of the Committee on Appropriations, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report. I so move.
Chairman, Senate Committee on Appropriations of the 10th Senate, Senator Solomon Adeola Olamilekon Yai, FCACON. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, very distinguished colleague. May I lay the report of the Joint Committee on Appropriation on the 2025 Appropriation Bill. May I move to lay the report of the Joint Committee on Appropriation on the 2025 Appropriation Bill. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Dixon Seraki Henry, could you please second the motion?
Thank you, Mr. President, and my dear colleagues. Henry Seraki Dixon, I rise to second.
Those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Mr. Chairman, you may proceed.
Point of order.
Point of order, Senate Leader.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I rise pursuant to Order 8 sub 3 of our rules to move for extension of time to enable us sit beyond 3 p.m. I so move.
The Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion that the Senate sits beyond 3 o'clock to enable the Senate to consider other items on the order paper.
Those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Mr. Chairman, you may proceed to present your report, to read your report.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleague, Adeola Solomon Olamilekon, representing Ogun West Senatorial District in the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I hereby present the report of the Joint Committee on Appropriation on the 2025 Appropriation Bill. You may recall that on Wednesday, the 18th December 2024, the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, lay before the joint sitting of the National Assembly the 2025 appropriation bill tagged the Budget of Restoration, Securing Peace and Building Prosperity, containing the budget estimate of the federal government revenue and expenditure for the 2025 fiscal year in accordance with Section 81, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution as altered. The legislative action. The Senate debated the general principle of the bill on Thursday, the 19th December 2024. The bill was read the second time and referred to the Committee on Appropriation for further legislative action. Thereafter, the committee referred the estimate to various ministries and departments to the subcommittee that have the jurisdiction over them in compliance with Order 91, subsection 4A of the Senate Standing Order 2023 as altered. To fast-track work on the bill, the committee drew up a work plan and issued guidelines to subcommittee for further legislative action. Further to the issuance of the guideline, the committee met with chairman of the subcommittee on Monday, the 6th January 2025, and gave further brief on salient matters that will facilitate the completion of the legislative task within a reasonable time frame. Additionally, the committee held a one-day public hearing session on Thursday, the 16th January 2025, to receive input from ministries, departments, and agencies, civil society organizations, captains of industry, and development partners. Summary of the 2025 appropriation bill. The initial proposal of the executive was 49.740 trillion naira, which include 4.435 trillion naira only for the statutory transfer, 16.327 naira only for debt servicing, 14.12 trillion naira only for non-debt, and 14.4853 trillion naira only for the capital component of the budget. While processing the bill, the Joint Committee on Appropriation met with the President's economic team, which include the coordinating ministers of the economy and Minister of Finance, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, the Minister of State for Finance, the Director General of Budget Office of the Federation, the Director General of Debt Management Office, and the Accountant General of the Federation to further discuss the revenue projection and expenditure of the 2025 appropriation bill. After a series of meetings held, the Committee on Finance, in conjunction with our committee, sourced additional revenue from some revenue-generating agencies detailed below. The government-owned enterprises, 1.82 trillion naira. Federal Inland Revenue Services, 1.497 trillion naira. Nigerian Custom, 1.20 trillion naira. And this is after deduction of their cost of collection for both the FRS and the Nigerian Customs Service. Revenue sum of 4.4 trillion 530 billion 479 million 637,000 additional revenue realized from the above effort was communicated to the executive and applied the fund to address critical challenges and advance government development as follows. 1. The solid mineral resources, 1 trillion naira. Recapitalization of the Bank of Agriculture, BOE, 1.5 trillion naira. The recapitalization of Bank of Industry, 500 billion naira. Critical infrastructure project under the Renewed Hope Infrastructure Development Fund, 1.5 trillion naira, which is broken down as follows. Irrigation development through the River Basin Development Authority, 380 billion naira. Transportation infrastructure, that is the road and rail, 700 billion naira, comprising of 300 billion for construction of critical routes and 400 billion for light rail network development in urban centers. The border community also got the sum of 50 billion naira, and the military barracks accommodation got the sum of 250 billion naira, while the military aviation got the sum of 120 billion naira. The highlight of the bill. The highlight of the 2025 budget estimate are as follows. The aggregate revenue is 54 trillion 990 billion 165 million 355,396, while the statutory transfers stood at 3 trillion 645 billion naira, while the recurrent expenditure stood at 13 trillion and 64 billion naira. The capital expenditure stood at 23 trillion 963 billion 251 million 624,250, while the debt servicing stood at 14 trillion 317 billion 142 million 689,548, while the fiscal deficit of 13.08 trillion naira was recorded, while the deficit GDP stood at 1.52%. It is to be noted that the recent action by the United States government to suspend further intervention in the Nigerian global health sector through the provision of vaccines and drugs for malaria, polio, HIV, and tuberculosis using its agency, the USAID, will have an adverse effect on Nigerians affected by such diseases. On this note, the president took proactive measure and made a new provision of $200 million, which is equivalent to about 300 billion naira in the service-wide vote to fill the gap created by the United States government suspension of the intervention to the global health sector to proactively address the above-mentioned health challenges which are currently being suffered by countries like Uganda and others. Similarly, some critical agencies of the government forwarded genuine requests to Mr. President for additional funding. After thorough examination by the Joint Committee, additional funds were provided to the agencies, which include the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, NFIU, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Offences, ICPC, the National Judicial Council, NJC, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, Department of State Services, the DSS, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the Nigerian Armed Forces, among others. The budget size was increased by 700 billion to cater for the following. 1. The 270 billion differentials between the details of the budget and the bill. 2. The provision of $200 million, which is equivalent of 300 billion for procurement of vaccine and drugs. And 3. Some agents of the government that were provided funds to take care of their critical needs. The Joint Committee worked harmoniously with the leadership of the National Assembly and the executive arm of government in the processing of the bill, and this ensures maximum collaboration of the two arms in the utilization of additional revenue projection to improve the funding of some critical projects which could not be adequately funded in the budget proposal earlier submitted by Mr. President due to funding constraint. Observation: the 2025 appropriation bill was presented late in comparison with the 2024 appropriation bill. 2. It was observed that there was an upward review of the budget from 49.7 trillion to 54.9 trillion to cater for differences between the details of the bill and the procurement of vaccines and additional funding to some agencies of the government. Recommendation: the committee hereby recommend that 1. The executive present the budget to the National Assembly not later than 3 months before the next financial year. This will help return the country to the January to December budget cycle. 2. Having worked in harmony with the House of Representatives Committee on Appropriation and the subcommittee of the two chambers, the Senate do consider and approve a bill for an act to authorize the issuance from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 54 trillion 990 billion 165 million 356, which comprises of 3 trillion 645 billion 761,358,925, representing the statutory transfers. Also, 14,313,142,689,548, representing the debt service, while 13,64,9,682,673, representing the recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 23,963,251,624,250 represent the capital component of the 2025 appropriation bill. Conclusion. On behalf of the Committee on Appropriation, I wish to thank the President of the Senate and the leadership for their support to the committee. I also wish to thank the Appropriation Subcommittee for their cooperation in making the budget enactment process robust and effective. And these have contributed significantly in making the report with a record time. Lastly, I thank the distinguished senators and staff of the committee who worked tirelessly to ensure the successful completion of this legislative assignment. Mr. President, very distinguished colleague, I so submit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for presenting this well-crafted report. And we're proud of you and your committee for being able to work on the appropriations bill despite the time constraint that you had. And distinguished senators, we have discussed this budget, the report, extensively during the executive session. I don't think there's anything we need to add rather than to go straight to, I don't think there's anything we need to add. We have, the lead, Mr. President, the leader of the Senate, can we move motion so that we can resolve to Committee of Supply to go to the clause-by-clause condition of the bill?
Thank you, Mr. President.
When we go to Committee of Supply, you can raise your issue, no problem. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. I rise to move that the Senate now at this time dissolve to a committee of the supply for further consideration of this bill. I so move.
Minority Leader. Senator, when we go to Committee of Supply, you can still say something.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I support the motion that the Senate dissolves into the Committee of Supply for further consideration of the report. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion moved by the leader, seconded by Minority Leader, please say aye. Those that you say nay, the ayes have it.
Yes, Senator Ume, I agree with you. You raised an issue during the executive session, and we all agree that you say that in the plenary. So you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Victor Ume, OFR. I represent Anambra Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, just before we go to the clause-by-clause consideration of this bill, I would like to use the opportunity, as we agreed in the closed-door session, that I will raise the issue I raised in the closed-door about this bill. You will recall that on the 19th of December, 19th of January, 2025, when we debated this bill during the second reading, I raised an observation that there was an omission that I considered grave in that bill. And that omission was on non-provision of any sum of money for the construction of standard gauge rail from Port Harcourt through, in fact, from south-south through southeast, north-central, northwest, and northeast. 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 I said northwest is there because of Kavanchan. Is there. It's northwest. So I said that that corridor has no functional railway system and none has been constructed there. It's been abandoned. That I was hoping that that budget, this bill, will incorporate the need to build that railway. Also, drawing from the fact that on the 23rd of November 2023, I sponsored a motion here, co-sponsored by 35 senators from this corridor, on the need to construct standard gauge rail from Port Harcourt through Aba, Makurdi to Maiduguri, and no provision was made. You recall that you were presiding on that date, and you told me that until the breakdown comes out, that I may not be sure that that provision was not made. We waited, the breakdown came out, and that rail line has zero allocation, zero, no money for that railway line. We took it up at the committee level. Senator Alero will bear me witness. The minister could not give any satisfactory answer. Now, the president had made an additional appropriation request for 4.5 trillion itemizing projects that will be built with the fund, particularly the transportation infrastructure provision of 700 billion for roads, 300 billion, 400 billion for light rail network development in urban centers, only urban centers. That rail line was also omitted again out of the 4.5 trillion. I said that those people who are using this rail line from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri have been abandoned again. And this large provision in this budget, from 49 trillion to 54 trillion naira now, and not even a dime was put on that railway line. That is not acceptable to our people. So I'm standing again to say that even though we are now at the point of passing this budget, that the Senate should take appropriate note of this.
Thank you.
And you have to
You have 1 minute remaining.
It's not only thank you, SP, please. It's not only thank you. You have to intervene. You have to intervene. The presidency has opportunity for supplementary appropriation. Anytime he brings a request here, this Senate will consider it. So that Eastern Red Line needs to be accommodated in this program. Yes, for the good of this country and good of all.
Thank you. This matter was raised during the session, and it was agreed that it will be communicated to the executive and then work in conjunction with the executive to ensure that the matter is addressed. So it's something that has been concluded. It's just to say it, for everyone to hear. But this matter has been resolved. Appropriate action will be taken, and it will be dealt with. Thank you very much. Let's go straight to. Oh, there's a motion. Okay, seconder, Senator Dixon.
Sorry. But I can, for purposes of working together to show that we are all united when it comes to development, I would like to yield the floor to Senator Ningi, my friend.
Wonderful. That is an action from an elder statesman.
Thank you.
You've demonstrated you are a statesman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and countryman, for allowing me to second this motion.
Former member House of Representatives, former governor, two-time governor for that matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to second this very important women's motion. And it is also added, just like we agreed in an executive session, that the next supplementary that comes to this National Assembly should come with that proposal. I so second, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Those in favor of the motion raised by Senator Ume and seconded by Senator Ningi through as a proxy to Senator Dixon, please say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Now, okay.
Leader of the Senate, approach the chair.
It's correct. It's correct.
So let me thank distinguished Senator Ome for your observation. And I assure you that this is not the last budget that the federal government will make. The issue you raise affects up to 3 zones. South-South is involved, Southeast is involved, and Northeast is also involved. In fact, like I said earlier, no, I didn't say North Central. Like I said earlier, when I was a young person, less than 10 years old, I took train from Aba all the way to Zaria to attend an interview in the Nigerian military school. So those old days can come back if this eastern corridor of the rail line is revived. So we take it up with the executive so that even if it comes in the Appropriation Act, it will still be carried out. It will ease movement. It will create more employment opportunities. It will also assist in the movement of goods and services. And it will also bring about cheaper means of transport. So your motion was in order, and we will communicate it to the authorities at the executive arm of government appropriately. I thank you for raising it, and I thank my colleagues for their contributions. Distinguished colleagues, Appropriation Bill 2025. Federal Government of Nigeria Gross Federation Revenues. Total share of gross federation revenues. The total sum of 34 trillion 388 billion 68 million 745,178 naira will make up the total of the gross revenue for the Federation Revenue of Nigeria. Those in support of this budget head say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the Schedule B, which is a deduction in the sum of total deduction in the sum of 6 trillion 900 billion 185 million 37,487 naira. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Mbigi, you said they are not here. And they've not traveled. Part C, Federal Government of Nigeria's share of net federation revenues. Will the Senate approve the sum of 27 trillion 487 billion 883 million 707,069 691 naira to form part of the net revenue of the Federation. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Independent revenues. Total independent revenue. Would the Senate approve the total independent revenue in the sum of 3 trillion 465 billion 343 million 761,488 million naira 388 naira to form part and parcel of the total independent revenues. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. For Part E, other dividends, will the Senate approve the sum of 734,934,080,860 naira to form part of the total dividends accruing to the Federation in the current 2025 budget. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. For aids and grants, will the Senate approve the total sum of 761,905,057,500 naira to form part and parcel of the aids and grants for the 2025 appropriation? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve special funds and account receipts, special levies and accounts in the sum of 300 billion? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Government-owned enterprises, net of operations. Government-owned enterprises net of operations surpluses in the sum of 2,272,747,017 naira to form part and parcel of the 2025 appropriation. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Other revenues in the sum of 1,459,275,147,444 naira to form part and parcel of the 2025 appropriation. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Statutory transfers. A total provision of 3,645,765,358,925 naira has been made as provision for statutory transfers in the 2025 budget appropriation. Those in support that this form part and parcel of the 2025 budget of the Federation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. For debt servicing and sinking fund, will the Senate approve the sum of 14,317,142,689,548 naira to form the debt servicing stroke sinking fund in the 2025 appropriation? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. For recurrent and non-debt expenditure, will the Senate approve the provision of 13,682,673 naira to form part and parcel of non-debt servicing, non-debt expenditure in the 2025 appropriation? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. For capital expenditure, will the Senate approve a total expenditure of 23,965,251,682 250 naira to form the capital outlay in the 2025 budget of the Federation of Nigeria. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Accordingly, will the Senate now approve the aggregate expenditure of 54 trillion 990 billion 165 million 355,396 naira to form the aggregate expenditure in the 2025 budget of the Federation of Nigeria. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Accordingly, will the Senate now approve clauses 1 to 13? Let's put it clauses 1 to 13 as part and parcel of the 2025 budget proposals of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate also approve, particularly clause 13 on page 3, which involves the short title of the appropriation bill for 2025? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. They are not here. For the long title on page 1, will the Senate approve that this long title will be part and parcel of the 2025 Appropriation Act? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the explanatory memorandum on page 11 of this bill? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate leader, you may wish to request the Senate President to as chairman of progress.
Well, Mr. President, sitting as chair, very distinguished senators of the Federal Nigeria, I rise to move that the Senate now reverts to plenary to enable the most distinguished chairman report progress. I so move.
Serious progress.
Mr. President, sitting as chair, I support the motion that the Senate reverts to plenary to enable the chair report progress. I so second.
The distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that the chairman reverts with the August Assembly to plenary for the chair to report progress. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So we move to plenary for the chair to report serious progress. Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of Supply considered the report of the Committee on Appropriation on the Appropriation Bill 2025 and approved as follows. Part A, share of gross Federation revenue as recommended. Part B, deductions as recommended. Part C, Federal Government of Nigeria's share of net Federation revenue as recommended. Part D, independent revenues as recommended. Part E, other dividends less NLNG dividend captured in gross Federation revenues as recommended. Part F, aids and grants as recommended. Part G, special funds and account receipts as recommended. Part H, government-owned enterprises net of operation or operational surpluses as recommended. Part I, other revenues as recommended. Aggregate revenue stroke inflow for the Federation of Nigeria in 2025 as recommended. Expenditures, statutory transfers as recommended. Recurrent non-debt expenditure as recommended. Capital expenditure as recommended. Aggregate expenditure as recommended. Debt financing as recommended. Assets stroke privatization as recommended. Multilateral stroke bilateral project-tied loans as recommended. Aggregate financing items as recommended. Explanatory memorandum as recommended. Short title as recommended. Long title as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of Supply? Leader of the Senate, you may wish to move that the Senate President invites the Clerk of the Senate to proceed to read the bill for the third time.
Mr. President, I'm well guided, and I thank you for also guiding the process. I so move.
Having so moved, will the Senate Minority Leader espouse what has been moved?
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion as moved by the Senate President, by the Senate Leader. I so second.
Well, I believe the Senate Leader moved a motion that the Appropriation Bill 2025 be read a third time, and this has been seconded by the Minority Leader of the Senate. The motion is on the floor. Those in support of the motion that this appropriation Bill 2025 be read a third time, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation, the total sum of 54 trillion 990 billion 165 million 355,396 naira only.
Stop. Start again.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation, the total sum of 54 trillion 990 billion 165 million 355,396 naira only, of which 3 trillion 645 billion 761 million 358,925 naira only is for statutory transfers. 14 trillion 317 billion 142 million 689,548 naira only is for debt service. 13 trillion 64 billion 9 million 682,673 naira only is for recurrent non-debt service expenditure, while the sum of 23 trillion 963 billion 251 million 624,250 naira only is for contribution to the Development Fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2025, SB 681, third reading.
I must be very careful so that I will not say that this money is too much for me. A bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation, the total sum of 54 trillion 990 billion 165 million 355,366 naira only, of which 3 trillion 645 billion 761 million 358,925 naira only is for statutory transfers. 14 trillion 317 billion 142 million 689,548 naira only is for debt service. 13 trillion 64 billion 9 million
682,673 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 23 trillion 963 billion 251 million 624,250 naira only is for contribution to the Development Fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2024. This bill for 2025. This bill is now read a third time. A bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the sum of 54 trillion 990 billion 165 million 355,396 naira only, of which 3 trillion 645 billion 961 million 358,925 naira only is for statutory transfers. 14 trillion 317 billion 142 billion 689,548 naira only is for debt servicing. 13 trillion 64 billion 9 million 682,673 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 23 trillion 963 billion 251 million 624,250 naira only is for contribution to Development Fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December. This bill is read a third time and passed. Let me thank the chairman of the Committee on Appropriation, Olamilekon Yayi, and all the members of the Appropriation Committee, who are almost 2/3 of the Senate, including all the chairmen of our various committees, for working so hard to ensure probity, accountability, and prudent expenses of the federal government of Nigeria. And thank the Committee on Finance for even the probing to recover additional revenue for the use by the Federation of Nigeria, and all members of the Committee on Finance. And now thank all our committee chairmen that I watch on a daily basis, who strive day and night to go through all the MDS and all the existing parastatals in the Federation, asking questions, probing and finding out the expenditures of 2024 and what the outflow for 2025 will be, and also thank members of the House of Representatives who worked collaboratively with the Senate to arrive at this 2025 budget appropriation bill. I thank you all for your contributions, and I hope that this appropriation bill will contribute to moving Nigeria forward and will assist Mr. President in his renewed hope agenda to renew the hope of Nigerians in all facets of life, from infrastructure to security and to provision of even respect for this country from the international community, most especially to leave a better nation for the future generations of this country. I thank you all for arriving at this final junction. May God Almighty bless this budget. May God Almighty bless this appropriation bill. And may Mr. President send this into act of parliament and may move this nation forward, stabilize this nation, prosper this nation, and may more monies come through this budget into the federation of this country. Can we say amen? I thank you all. Leader of the Senate. So in the course of the deliberations by various committees on budget 2025, one issue kept creeping in, and that was the issue of the single revenue payment now. Senator Nigi, how do you call it? Single payment system. I will, in consultation with the leadership of the Senate and the leadership of the House of Representatives, meet with the coordinating minister of the economy and all those involved in the management of the revenue of the Federation to point out that that is frowned at by the Senate and the National Assembly, and that it should be stopped forthwith because it contravenes the provisions of the Public Procurement Act and other extant laws of the Federation of Nigeria. It leaves room for discretion. It will draw back the the push to develop Nigeria faster by the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration because of too much discretion involved in it. And at the same time, the delay to release funds for capital projects is not in the interest of the administration. If it is not stopped, it will sabotage the entirety of the work of this administration, because it will also take away the work of the DFAs, the permanent secretaries, and other agencies, which was not contemplated. Above all, it contravenes the exam provisions of that have been met by the Parliament, that no contract should be given out until sources of funds are made available. I think that's very clear. So I'll report back to the Senate as you have directed after the meeting. So, and I hope that will stop immediately, that we revert to the old system as soon as practicable. Another issue came up, that I've received a letter from the Inspector General of Police. He says a humble appeal to the Senate to correct the misrepresented facts, whatever it is. I write to convey my warmest regards to the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, while also conveying my profound shock and dismay at the recent events that unfolded during the Senate Committee on Public Accounts, sitting on Tuesday, 11th day of February 2025. The public vilification of the police force during the session was deeply troubling, particularly as the allegations presented were entirely rooted in factual inaccuracies. This unfortunate incident has had far-reaching consequences, perpetuating a very false narrative about our institution and the force's leadership, both domestically and internationally. The reputational damage inflicted upon our country and its public institution is unimaginable. In the light of this, I respectfully implore the Senate leadership to intervene and to grant the police force sufficient time to conduct a thorough investigation into the alleged missing firearms from the armories as of December 2020. We appreciate the Senate Committee's probe into the alleged missing firearms, but urge the committee to conduct future hearings on sensitive security issues in camera so that the wrong impression will not be created in the minds of Nigerians and in the minds of the international community. This is crucial to prevent misinformation and ensure national security. Conducting hearings of these sensitive security issues in camera will help prevent the spread of misinformation and protect national security interests. It will also allow for more candid discussions and fact findings without compromising sensitive information. The Inspector General of Police says he's committed to maintaining a strong partnership with the National Assembly, working together to drive positive changes in our country and improving the lives of Nigerians and security of the nation. And on this note, IGP Igbetogun Olukayode Adiola, PhD, MPM, Inspector General of Police, assures the Nigerian Senate of his esteemed regards. This letter is noted. No further discussion. In law, we call this res ipsa loquitur. Res ipsa loquitur. So there was clear misinformation on the issue of missing firearms. And I think it's, the IGP's letter is very clear. Investigation will be done both internally by the police, and further investigation will also be conducted by the Senate particularly. But this is to inform the general public that the information brought out on that day were totally false and inaccurate. Accordingly, this Senate stands adjourned to Tuesday, the 18th day of February at 11 a.m. prompt. I thank you all.